Yeah. Good morning, everybody. And here I'm back again this Thursday with a new topic, parenting styles. Every parent's parenting style, the way they parent their children, has a huge impact on how you design your curriculum and how you implement your curriculum. And so I thought this would be a very important aspect to look at. And you know, where yesterday, last night, in fact, when I was thinking about what should I say with about parenting styles, and what is it that is coming to me when I'm talking about parenting style. My reflections made me realize that, you know, every parent has different parenting styles embedded within them. There could be one dominant one, which is generally seen everywhere. However, different styles come out in the open especially when you're experiencing something which is totally different, or something you've not thought of before, or maybe sometimes when your fear comes into play, then a very different style can be noticed. And this is true for me. I'm not sure whether it is true for everybody, but here I am sharing about my experiences and my knowledge. So I often have seen that my parenting style is very different when I have some kind of fear in me. For example, fear of safety. There are many a times when I feel that my daughter is not safe to be alone playing in the garden, though the garden is close by. And then, I suddenly become authoritarian and I say that, don't play alone, or don't play in the far away part of the garden. Play in a place where I can see you. And I become quite authoritarian when I say that. Or else there are times when I am, I want something want my daughter to do something. Then I become more or less the loving parent who's, trying to butter up my child. So I'm also into authoritative parenting, where I use a lot of positive reinforcement. And then there are times when I'm also very permissive, where, especially when I'm busy in doing something, and my one of my children comes and asks me, "Can I do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, whatever." So there are different kinds of styles that I can see within me too. And today's session, we are just going to help parents become more and more aware of different styles that have already been researched and documented. And many psychologists, parenting coaches talk about these parenting styles. So I'm going to just start my presentation to help you understand. So let's go to the next slide. Now, if you look at this slide, you will see you'll see that there's a chart with four different kinds of parenting styles. The first one is the authoritarian. And if you look at the picture, there is a parent, there's a father who's standing, and a child is right next to him, and the parent seems to be shouting at the child. So the focus in the authoritarian style is on obedience, punishment, and over discipline. So disciplining happens through punishments, and parents are quite strict. They believe that the child has to follow their commands and have to obey them. So obedience is given a lot of importance. Such parenting styles, I remember to a great extent, my parents, my mom especially, was the authoritarian, and because she felt that she had to guide me, she had to mold me into something that was a good human being, and strict discipline. She kind of believed that you spare the rod and spoil the child kind of an approach, and this is the authoritarian approach to parenting. The second one that you see here, there's a nice little parent sitting with her daughter on a table and chair, and they're both engaged in something. Now, this is a authoritative parenting. It's different from authoritarian, where the person has the power and everything, the authority, power to control, all those things are more important. Whereas in the second one, as we see, it's more of, the parent is lovingly putting a hand across the child, and is probably explaining something to the child. So the focus in authoritative parenting is positive relationship. However, there are rules set and there is enforcement of rules. However, everything is through positive reinforcements. Rarely punishments are used. So, the whole approach in authoritative parenting is the warm, loving care, the spirit of nurturance. The belief is that the parents are more experienced than the child, and hence have the responsibility to nurture the growth in the child. So that is authoritative parenting. Many of us who homeschool our children and have many traits of authoritative parenting. Then we have the permissive parenting. Now you can see the mother has just let her hands go like this, and the children are running around and playing mischief. That's the third kind of parenting, where the parent has kind of given up and saying, do whatever you want, everything is okay. So that is the third kind of parenting. To a great extent, homeschoolers are also permissive. If, however, they are not permissive they are not over permissive. They believe that a child's opinion, child's choice is of great value. And however, here, if you see, the once again the parent is knows and is aware that they are in a position of authority, but they are kind of giving up on it and saying, okay, do whatever you want. The fourth kind of parenting that is there is a parent who's completely uninvolved. Now, if you see the picture, the parent is watching TV and the son is doing something, and the parent is not bothered about what the child is doing. Parent is completely careless about what is going on and is not interested at all in what the child is doing. So that becomes your uninvolved parent. So these four parenting styles are popularly, they are very popular, and everybody talks about these four parenting styles. And I'm going to show you a book. The book is Raising Difficult Children. Now, this is Difficult Kids. I don't like the name of the book, to be very frank. However, this book gives a very good account of all these four parenting styles, and they also provide small exercises or something to think about to the parent, to reflect on certain situations that have happened at their home, and how just knowledge of the parenting style would help. So the book is called Raising Difficult Children. I'll write about the book later on in the comment section. Okay. Now, to understand these four parenting styles in detail, I am going to go over to the next slide, and I'm also going to explain, and we are going to see from the next few slides what is the risk, the impact that these parenting styles have on children. So okay, so I'm going to go and share the next slide. Okay, so this slide also talks about demandingness, like the authoritative parent is more of the guiding parent. Permissive parent is has very low demands on the child, and hence it is more permitting parent, letting the child do whatever they want. The controlling parent is the authoritarian parent, and rejecting parent is the one who neglects parenting and is completely ignorant of what the child is doing. Now, let's look at each of these. I don't want to spend too much time, but I guess it's self-explanatory too. So, an authoritarian parent has high expectations from the child, is a strict disciplinarian, does not discuss reasons for discipline, is less nurturing, punishing by shaming, withdrawing affection, spanking, and shouting, and uses fear as a discipline tool. Now, what is the outcome of in the child? Okay, what happened? How does now this is something that is what how average on an average children display this outcome by being with an authoritarian parent. One is they have a lower self-esteem, follower mentality, that is they stop thinking for themselves, and they just know that they have to follow what the others say, obey what the orders of the authority. Their social skills are poor. They are harder to make. It's very difficult for these children to make independent decisions because they've never experienced making independent decisions earlier. And they constantly seek validation from the figures in authority, and they want to conform with whatever is expected. And most often such children are not very happy. Okay, so if I go to the next slide, and I know I'm going to rush through this because I don't want the whole session to go for more than an hour, and I want to also take in questions and answers. So I also request all my viewers to share their feedback or ask their questions in the comments so that I can take them one by one. There was a question asked in when I put up the poster, and that was about the parent sharing that she is an obsessed parent and she's obsessed about everything around parenting. Though I didn't quite understand what she said. If she's viewing this live, I would like her to put her query once again in the comments section. So now going to the next slide. The next slide talks about the authoritative parenting. Now, what do we see when we look at the slide? So in authoritative parenting, the parent does set limits and boundaries, but the note is not of force. It's about explaining the reasons for the rules, is more warm, is more nurturing. There are high expectations for achievement and maturity, encourages good behavior through positive reinforcements. So that would be rewards or praise and appreciation and so on, but does not punish mistakes, believes that mistakes happen and they don't need to be punished. They are also open to listening and discussing and hearing out what the child wants to say or the child's perspective, and gives child a lot of attention and affection. Now, children of such parents, research says, have a higher academic performance, so are well balanced and suffer less from mental illnesses, are more happy, are self reliant, more influenced by parents than peers, and have a high self esteem, and can are able to interact with other individuals socially, and they're much better at that. So this is the authoritative or the warm or responsive parenting, and we often see this authoritative kind of parenting being promoted by many of the approaches. Call it the Montessori approach, the Glenn Doman approach, or the Waldorf approach. They completely believe in the loving authority that the parents have, and the parents need to share with their child. So that is about the authoritative parenting, and we move on to permissive parenting. Like I said in my introduction, the permissive parents has absolutely low or zero expectations from their child, and yet are very warm and responsive. The parents are very poor at setting limits and boundaries. They are warm and caring, and they are more like friends than parents, and they have very low expectations for children's routine or structure. Now, very often, now when I talk about permissive parenting, very often people confuse permissive parenting as unschooling, because in unschooling too, parents are more like friends, and they do not believe in setting routine or structure for their child. However, permissive parenting and unschooling are very different, because the basic principle is that in unschooling, parents believe in the rights of the child, and they also believe in being aware of what they are going through as parents. That so in permissive parenting, a parent might completely give up on what they want and what their beliefs and values are, and just give up on everything and just go back, be as permissive as possible with their children. However, in unschooling, we believe in conversations, dialogues, and yet believe that the child has the ability to take decisions and make choices, and the parent respects those choices. So, and parents facilitate by providing information, the pros, cons of the choices that the child is making. So, permissive parenting and unschooling are very different. I don't want you guys to get confused and feel that unschooling means permissive parenting. Now, the outcome in a child, usually the child doesn't know how to regulate themselves emotionally. They are highly demanding too, and they have outbursts. They know how to manipulate their parents to get what they want. They are less disciplined, they are impulsive, they are more likely to engage in unhealthy habits, substance abuse. They have lower academic achievement, and increased level of aggression. Now, all um, this is what is has been researched through psychology and various experiments that have taken place, and this is what we might once again I would like to share with parents that every parent might have a dominant style, but that does not mean that the other styles are not present. And very often, depending on the situation, parents choose a style that best suits the situation that they are in. So, and to explain the next uh, parenting style is that of neglectful parenting, where parents have zero time for their children. Parents are too involved in their own lives. They're so involved in themselves and their own lives that they have no time for their children. They are absent from their children's life. They give them zero or no, little, very little attention. They have absolutely no expectations or very low expectations for achievement, and there is nothing. They are totally ignorant of the child. No energy is devoted towards their happiness or welfare, and displays very little affection, little to no affection. We now it's very easy to know what the outcome is going to be in a child in case a child has such a parent. He's going to have a very low self-esteem, is going to be withdrawn, is going to be anxious, will have low motivation, probably poor academic performance, and would be more prone towards delinquency or substance abuse. So these are the four main parenting styles that are there, that have been researched and documented. Many books have been written on these four parenting styles. There are many articles. If you just Google parenting styles, you'll come across n number of articles on these four parenting styles. Once again, what I would like to share with parents is that don't look at these as black and white chock-a-block things and this is it. We as homeschoolers, we do not completely believe in everything. There are many children who are yet very strong in their resilience and their ability to cope up with life challenges in spite of experiencing neglectful parenting. And we've also seen that children with authoritative parenting do fall into bad company and do have other challenges in life, depending on how they process what is going on with their parents and the world around them. So now, apart from these four parenting styles, there are some very interesting parenting styles which have, and on these parenting styles also there has been a lot of work around. And my next slide is going to show those. Now, if you look at the pictures, okay, there is a question. I'm going to just kind of take this question. Thank you for this so much for this excellent session. It would be very helpful if you could explain how can you control yourself turning unintentionally into a authoritarian parent if you were raised by an authoritarian parent, or on the contrary, simply turning into a permissive parent as a result. This is a wonderful question, and to be very honest, it requires a lot of inner work within oneself to understand how the past experiences are playing a huge role in how you are today, and reflecting and deciding about whether you want the same thing to be carried on, or do you want to change yourself, do you want to transform yourself. So it begins with that inner work, and there has been I have over these past 4.5 years, I have been doing a lot of inner work. And there has it's not that I do not react. Sometimes my reactions come as an impulse, it's just like click of a button or snapping of your fingers, and I just retaliate. However, when you reflect on it, you need to have the ability to say sorry. You should mean it when you say sorry to your child. You need to explain. Where I That's the approach that I take. I generally explain to my child my state of mind when I behaved in that particular way, and how I feel after introspecting that that was not the right thing to do, and I would like to apologize for that. So this is something that I would like to tell all parents, that don't shy away from apologizing and saying that, okay, I did make a mistake, but I'm willing to change. Let's move on. And moving on too, because if we don't move on, and the child also starts getting the feeling that once you have a certain behavior, it sticks with you and it remains with you for a lifetime. However, that's not true. Everybody can change, everybody can transform. So I would say that, try taking a few breaths before you react to a certain situation, counting to 10, just closing your eyes and thinking about the situation before reacting. Responding is always better than reacting. And if you can always tell the child, can I think about this, and or there's something, I find something amiss, or I'm not, somewhere something in me is telling me that I'm not happy with what is happening. Can we relook at it? Can we just take a few steps back and relook at our behavior? So there are different ways in which you can work hard towards changing yourself from an authoritarian parent, which may be very unintentional, which may just happen on the spur, to a more of an authoritative parent. Okay. And simply turning, yes, very often, in fact, I also would do that at times. From one extreme, I would jump to the other extreme of being either over permissive or completely neglecting my child. So I think a constant process of reflection before you go to sleep every day, expressing gratitude for being a parent, reminding yourself of your role in the child's life, and how you are going to make a difference in the child's life, is very important, so that you don't jump from one extreme to the other. And yes, both extremes, and if you keep jumping to both extremes, let me tell you, all it does is confuses the child even more. The child feels the parents' behavior is unpredictable, and so they don't know how to behave, react. They're constantly confused. Their self-esteem lowers down. So you need to, every parent, I would say, needs to spend a lot of time thinking about what do they want for their child, what is it that would make their child happy, and how do they want their parenting journey to be. One A parent needs to spend a lot of time on that. Okay, I hope I've answered your question. And with that, I'm going to move on to to the slide that I'm sharing with you guys. So the first slide shows, a tiger with this in his hand, and is trying to teach the child the piano. So these are the tiger parents. So tiger parents are those who focus a lot on excellence and doing well. And they are also strict disciplinarians. They push their child towards getting better and better and better at the skills that they are in. There is a wonderful book written by Amy Chua, who calls herself the Tiger Mom. And one needs to definitely, if you get the chance, please read the book. Her daughters are grown up now, and they are well settled in their own professions. She's a Chinese mom who felt that being a tiger mom was the best thing that happened. And it was because she was a tiger mom that her children have excelled in the field that they are in today. Now, as opposed to being a tiger mom, if you look down, there is an elephant who is lovingly asking the children to enter in to learn the piano. Now, these are again, this is the elephant parenting, which is very similar to our authoritative parenting, where the parent is a guide who nurtures and through love teaches the child to hone certain skills. Then another kind of parenting that is that has been so talked about in these recent years is what you see in the middle image. Can you see two parents, with the helicopter fan, getting things for their child who's graduating? So that is what is helicopter parenting, where the parent is too involved in their child's life and is intruding in everything that the child is doing and has a say in everything that the child does. So that is helicopter parenting, where the child parent is bringing the clothes for the child, the tiffin box, and a whole lot of things, trying to make all the arrangements for the child and trying to make the child as comfortable as possible. That's their intention. However, the child feels suffocated in such a space because they just don't get the space to explore themselves and find out what is it that they want. So that's helicopter parenting. And then we have something called the snowplow parenting, or it is also known as the lawn mower parenting. So what happens when you plow the snow? You clear the path, right? So snow plow parent is a parent who clears the path for the child and makes the child's journey smooth and caring and happy and without any obstacles. So that's what a snowplow parent is. So we often find snowplow parents. There is something in each one of us to be a snowplow parent, because we so want our children to have a happy life without any obstacles, without any problems and challenges. However, what we forget when we become snowplow parents is that sometimes what a child needs to experience challenges, because experiencing challenges is what develops their resilience and their ability to solve these problems using creative ways. So that's snowplow parenting. And the last image, can you see a cage and two children have been let out of the cage? So that is free range parenting. So free range parenting is something that I many unschoolers would believe in, and because free range parenting believes that a child cannot be constricted or cannot be kept in a cage, but they need to be let out. They need to have their freedom to explore, to experiment, to make their mistakes, to 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 live their lives, to experience their lives, to form their own meanings. And this is what free range parenting is. Many people who believe in natural living also believe in free range parenting, because the children are let free amidst nature to do whatever they want and explore things in their own way. Parent just becomes a facilitator who's there when the child needs them. If the child has a problem or a challenge, a child also feels that he or she can trust their parent to openly share what is going on in within themselves, and to collaborate to find solutions to their challenges. So, in a nutshell, so these are the main kind of parenting styles that are much talked about. Apart from this, you still would hear words like democratic parenting, parent who believes in democratic decision making, where the whole family as a unit decides on various things about learning, living life, etc. Then there is also something which I heard recently, which is called eclectic parenting. So, an eclectic parent is someone who is yet in an authoritative position, but uses is a mixed approach. So, a blend of different approaches to who parent their children. So, you've heard a lot of parents say, "No, I am strict with my child when it is necessary. When it is necessary, I permit. I'm over permissive. I don't even bother about what they are doing." Or sometimes the parent says, "Oh no, when it's exam times, that's the time when I am very sure that I enforce strictness and I ensure that my child studies and prepares for the exam." So you will find what eclectic parenting says is you find different shades of parenting styles in one's parenting journey. And when we take eclectic parenting to eclectic homeschooling, then a parent and the family chooses different ways of homeschooling. So, depending on the circumstances, their challenges, the environment that they are in, so they might use a mixed approach. So, they might say, like, for example, a parent would say that for everything else, we are unschooling except for maths or except for science, or we are unschooling but we believe that the child needs to learn 1 2 3 subjects or 1 2 3 skills. The child has to pick up a skill. So this is where eclectic homeschooling word comes in, and this is what eclectic homeschooling is. Yeah, so with that I have finished what I wanted to say. Maybe, yes, we could look at how this would have an impact on the curriculum that we are designing for our child. So whether you adopt, whether you just sign up for an online curriculum, online school, or whether you get textbooks of a particular board and decide to follow them, or you believe that you can create your own curriculum by choosing your topics and concepts that the child needs to learn. Now, your parenting style will govern what choices you make as a parent in terms of your child's learning. So, to give you an example, an authoritarian parent probably will become very strict in the implementation part of a curriculum, will probably just take a very well known, popular, or a curriculum that the parent believes in, and will just implement it with their child and expect full support and full discipline, right? So, whereas an authoritative parent will very naturally go in for more child friendly curriculums that are available, and would probably go in for uh, a Waldorf, Montessori approach, a Glendoman approach. However, would and some of them might also believe in creating their own curriculum, but everything will be done in a very loving and nurturing way through a lot of positive reinforcements. So you will have a star chart where you have stars if the child performs well, or you say that, okay, if you complete your tasks, then on Sunday we go for this outing. So there will be a lot more positive reinforcements in the implementation of whatever curriculum you choose. So that would be if you are an authoritative parent. If you are more of a permissive parent or an over permissive parent, then probably you will not, you will just say that whatever my child is doing is fine and I'm okay, and anyway they don't listen to me, so I just give up on what I want to do. So that would be that would become your approach if you are a permissive parent. Whereas if you are a neglecting, ignorant parent who's ignoring their child, then there won't even be a curriculum. The child parent will say, do whatever you want to, let me be and let me live my life. So your parenting styles would definitely have a say on what curriculum you design and how you design that curriculum. So let's see, if you are a tiger mom, then how would your curriculum be designed? So you would push the child towards excellence. You'll ensure that the child practices till they become better. Whereas if you are an elephant parent, you would probably be more loving, nurturing. You would use a lot of cajoling and all that to get the child to do what is planned by you. If you're a helicopter parent, you're going to sit on your child's head. You'll ensure that his pencils are sharpened, his table is neatly kept, and his books are in order, his notebooks, books, everything is kept perfectly, and everything will be made easily available to the child if you're a helicopter parent. If you're a snow plowing parent, you will get over bothered if a child is not understanding a concept, and you will try everything to make his journey smooth and easy. And so you might say, okay, you don't understand this, maybe I should bring in a video, I should hire a tutor, I should do all these things, without really thinking about how does the child want his path to be smoothened, or even thinking that the child may have thoughts about how to resolve this problem. If you're a free range parents, probably you would have something like a morning circle with the family, or a closing circle with the family, where you'll discuss challenges, issues, learnings. You'll applaud each other together for achievements throughout the day. And each child, the child and parent will be more on an equal platform than the parent being in a position of very high authority, or the control freak that the parent is. So parent will be more conscious and aware of what they are doing and their actions, and they'll constantly reflect on how their actions impact on their child. So if parents have any more questions, please do share in the comments. If you have any feedback to share, please do share in the comments. And while you all are doing so, I'm also going to bring to your notice a couple of more books which have played a huge role in my homeschooling journey. There is this book called Dumbing Us Down by John Taylor Gatto. So John Taylor Gatto, he himself was a teacher. He taught for many years, and he brings out in a very nice way, in a beautiful way, the hidden curriculum that is being implemented by parents, by hidden curriculum implemented by schools. And when you read it, you realize that, oh, you resonate so much with what he says, and you start thinking deeper around why you have pulled your child out of school, or why you as a family have chosen to homeschool. And then when you design your curriculum, you keep all these things in mind, and because you don't want to bring back a school into the life of the child. So this is a book that I really enjoy. Then there is another book that I have been recently reading. It's called The Drive. So this book basically is talks about internal motivation and how internal motivation to do something often is better than all the external motivations that parents use. So if a child wants, or even for that matter any individual, even you as a parent, if you want to learn something and if that drive is internal, you always find ways to do it, right? So the book Drive shares many experiments and many accounts of examples of how internal motivation or internal drive is important in learning and doing things better. There is another book. I don't have it right now. I have a audible version of it. It's called Punishment by Rewards by Alfie Kohn. Now, Alfie Kohn believes that your rewards are actually punishments for the child, and in what way. So he's explained that in his book Punished by Rewards, because what he says is that then the child ends up doing those things because he's expecting a reward or expecting something in return. He's not doing those things or he's not learning those things because he wants to or she wants to, they want to. Oh, and it's a beautiful book. You all can listen to it on Audible. Alfie Kohn has also written another book called Conscious Parenting. I also suggest Shefali Sabri's book on conscious parenting. So there are these wonderful books which are not only for homeschoolers but talk about parenting in general. And I really recommend these books. Maybe someday I would, do a series where I talk about these books and share a small review of each of these books that have had a major role in my life. Okay, so with that, since I don't see any comments coming up, I'm going to sign off and I'm going to say bye-bye. We will meet next week, next Thursday. I haven't yet decided on the topic. However, I do feel we could talk about developing observation skills and what do we do with those observations. So how do we use observation as a tool to decide, to in our curriculum design or curriculum implementation, how we so that's what I'm gearing towards, but I'm not sure if I feel that there is another topic that needs to be looked at. In fact, you viewers can also suggest some topics that we can look at and I can talk about. So on that note, thank you very much, and see you next Thursday.